to show that they were number one, they say they are number one, they link to the Web Dev Arena. And I don't think I've ever clicked a link so fast because I was like, what?
It's Front End Fire, and we're back, and I am your host for this week, Jack Harrington. With me are my esteemed colleagues, TJ Van Tol.
Hey, everybody.
And Paige Eateringhouse.
Hey, hey.
So this week on Front End Fire, we've got a lot of awesome stuff. We've got a big-time new Node version, very exciting. AI is apparently AI battling as a way to develop your site, which is okay.
In an arena.
In the arena. And Figma is jumping into site creation, so that's whoa.
Yeah.
And we've even got more AI news coming up. It's a jam-packed news episode. Let's get right into it.
Yes.
All right, Paige, you want to tell us all about this new Node version we got?
Yes. So Node 24 has just dropped. So this is going to be the newest stable version of Node, which will go into long-term support in about 6 months' time. But for Node v24, we have an upgrade to the V8 JavaScript engine. So now you've got some new options like float 16 array, explicit resource management if you really want to get up close and personal with your JavaScript applications, some regex additions. But yeah, I mean, they've upgraded their V8 engine. They've upgraded to NPM 11. So if you want to start using version 11, you can with Node 24. The async local storage API is now using something called async context frame by default. So this just means, I know, I didn't know anything about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But when I read the documentation notes, it's a more efficient implementation for async context tracking. So
More efficient is good, yeah.
yeah, exactly. More memory, better memory management, more efficient, whatever. The URL pattern is available globally, so you don't have to explicitly import to be able to use it anywhere in your Node projects going forward. And they've also got some nice things like test runner enhancements. So, you know, the new stable version of Node is out. Upgrade to it, give it a try. Let us know if you like it, if it's faster, all that good stuff.
I did try it, and I got to say, I heard that they said that the NPM version was going to be a lot faster. Mm-hmm. And it really wasn't for me. Maybe I wasn't on the right version of NPM. I don't know, but like I just felt really slow, just like always. I don't know.
Well, I cannot speak to that because I haven't upgraded myself and tried it yet, but hopefully it will improve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still on the stubborn. For all the competition Node and NPM is getting, I'm still kind of stubbornly using it just because the switching cost is higher to switch to, you know, Bun or Dino or any of these other new things that are out there. So
Node is just, it's still one of the most battle-tested frameworks out there. So you know it's going to work when you're building a back-end application or an API or something like that. And Bun and Dino just haven't been around as long. I think a lot of people are probably in the same boat.
Yeah, a friend of mine was doing a project just recently, and he's like, "Oh, you know, he's on Bun, and I was running into this," and I'm like, "Oh, there's your problem, right there." It's the compatibility. You know, I love the idea. I love that they're trying to make it super fast, and I love that now. Like the Bun folks are making Dino or no priority a top number one thing, right? So that any bug, is great. But still, just Node just works. You know, I love that about it. All right, so let's talk about AI battling.
Battling for web dev supremacy, apparently.
Oh my gosh.
I found out about this because I was reading about Gemini. So Gemini has a new release they put out this week, which I'll just briefly mention. It has the most ridiculous name ever. It is Gemini 2.5 Pro Preview IO Edition. That is the full name of the model.
That is a lot.
That's amazing.
So the IO edition is Google I/O is coming up in like a week. So apparently they're probably going to be talking about this version of the model there. Pro because it's a thinking model, but still, like, I don't know why these models are so hard to name, why people struggle with them so much, but whatever. But the very first heading on this model update was that they consider this a best-in-class front-end web development tool. I'm like, well, that's a very interesting heading to see on just some random LLM model update. And to show that they were number one, they say they are number one, they link to the Web Dev Arena. And I don't think I've ever clicked a link so fast because I was like, what the heck is the Web Dev Arena?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
What is
Thanks
this?
for that. Yeah.
And so I think it's a little easiest to see to try it out yourself. So there is a link in the show notes if you want to try it. But it is this platform that's developed by it's an open source platform created by researchers from UC Berkeley. And so it's research based. And it's basically a competition model for judging LLMs against each other for how well you can develop web apps with them.
Yeah, that's actually really cool.
Is the long and short of it.
Yeah.
And the model it's a head-to-head model. So think it uses an ELO system. It's a system similar to ELO. So kind of like chess would have rankings, and the rankings are, well, you play people of similar rankings, and then whoever wins moves up, whoever loses goes down, that sort of thing. But the way they determine this, so if you go to the Web Dev Arena, there's just two tabs on the thing. There's a leaderboard where you can see a list of the top ranking LLMs, which Gemini 2.5 Pro Preview IO Edition is number one right now. Claude Sonnet 3.7 is number two, just in case you were curious. But the second tab is a battle tab. And the way that works is you are prompting basically two different models. So you'll say, the one I tried is I said, build a marketing site for the product from Blues called No Card.
Yeah.
And I just put that in. And so then what this system does, what the Arena does, is you see a split screen, and it builds it with two different models, but it doesn't tell you which models it used to build them.
Yeah, it's like a blind taste test kind of thing.
Exactly. And then you vote. You say the left looks better, the right looks better. You can say tie, and you can also say they both look bad.
Nice.
Yeah, maybe, okay.
Either way, and then after you pick, then it tells you. It'll tell you which models were actually being used, and then it'll take that into account into the rankings, which model won, and it'll help drive this system that apparently at least Google seems to care about if they're calling this out prominently in their blog post. But I just thought it was fascinating that I think it's a neat idea because we talk about these models all the time, and this is the best, the kind of the most interesting system I've seen to rank them, because the other rankings I've seen for LLMs are very esoteric, really hard to understand. This is a little bit more concrete, like how good can it build a web app? And I don't know, I thought it was really interesting.
Well, how good did it build a web app, and which one won?
Yeah, did you like
You're leaving us
Gemini
hanging
more?
here. Like, which one, what happened?
Were they both bad?
Well, I did a couple rounds of it, and I picked. It has models that I had never heard of, because this leaderboard isn't just like 5 models. There are dozens on this thing. So a couple of the rounds, I picked one that won, and I was like, okay, I don't even know what that is.
Never heard of it.
I did pick Claude Sonnet 3.7. I got that, and I picked that as a winner in one of the rounds that I went through. I didn't run into it. Never prompted me with Gemini, with any of the Gemini models for that matter. I think there's like enough of these things that it's you roll of the dice what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Oh, so you don't get to pick the models. I guess that makes sense, right? Because you wouldn't want people just like skewing to their model or something. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if it, like a true ELO system, will match similarly paired rankings. So it would. Number 2 wouldn't get paired against number 20. Number 2 would get paired against 3 or maybe 4 or 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it takes that into account or if it is truly random and it just kind of rolls the dice and you get 2 different models and you pick one. But they cite some limitations because it is a little bit contrived, because it's telling it to build a single file web application.
Yeah, okay, sure.
So because of that, there's some risk of these LLMs over-indexing to help create that sort of thing, when the reality is we don't necessarily need models that are great at building single file websites. Right. But at the same time, I mean, it also keeps the complexity a lot lower because this is just some research project, and if it were building up full-on apps, you'd need something like Bolt and StackBlitz's infrastructure to facilitate that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think that's a leaderboard is such a great way to make it more tangible. Like, I agree with you. I've looked at some of the model comparisons in the past, and they are so dry. It's so impossible to figure out weighting and average and, all this just math that I don't care about. I just want to know what is the better model that I should be using to help me write better code. So being able to, see what two different models are doing at the same time is a super cool idea. I love that.
If nothing else, it's a lot of fun to play with, honestly. Yeah. I spent a good half hour just playing with the thing. I don't know. I had a blast.
When you weren't trying to get Next and React 19 running, it was
right.
Yeah. It's a nice break. When you're build is failing, tests are screwed. It's I need a palette cleanser here. Let's just go.
The other thing is you can kind of run it in the background and, then you come back to it later. Oh, that's cool. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get the little review thing there going on. Yeah, crazy. And I guess the other way they're doing the AI head-to-head now is that all the AI companies seem to be picking some rando game. Now you've got Gemini playing Pokemon for its Twitch thing now. I guess that's the thing we're doing. Seems to be doing well, I guess. I don't play Pokemon, so I can't really judge. But
who else was it that was doing Pokemon? Was it Claude?
Cave.
Claude, yeah.
Claude,
was that Pokemon or was that something else? I thought that was
it was Pokemon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so now that's become the new Turing test: is can it play
Pokemon?
Can it successfully play Pokemon, exit caves, get into gyms, go out again?
I do I'd highly recommend stuff. I'd highly recommend having a couple prompts you use to try out, so you kind of have this baseline. So that's why I have my static build a marketing site for this product, because I've been trying it for a bunch of different models. And then the other prompt I use is I tell these models to build a 3D open world racing game. Just see what they come up with, right? Does it spit out something functional or not? And I'd recommend having that because I found it's useful to have a couple things that when I hear about this new model and I'm like, well, is this interesting? Then if I run it on the things that I've been running for a few months, I kind of have a quick, not that it's perfect, right? It's obviously flawed. It's just a real quick test, but it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Have you gotten some decent racing games out of it?
I have, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Claude, on my personal leaderboard, Claude 3.7 is winning pretty handily on the open world racing competition.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess Claude works or pretty much wins for me most of the time, but
Yeah. Just using Claude Desktop to help me with day-to-day coding has really been, it's amazing how much better the code that it writes is as compared to ChatGPT or even GitHub Copilot. I'm sorry to say. It's just better. It's cleaner. It's more reusable. Claude's doing really well.
We did have some fun recently playing with the Gemini app. I downloaded it to my phone, went in and, took a picture of my dog and it was like, can you tell me what kind of dog this is, the kind of thing. We had a lot of fun with that, actually. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
I'll say that Gemini's AI Studio could use a little bit of work because I wanted to try this new model out and they don't make it easy. It's crazy. I was able to figure it out, but their AI Studio, it's easy to send little prompts in, just a straight text thing.
Yeah.
But if you want to get the model to do an environment, I don't know. I feel like Claude with Claude Code and Claude Desktop has way more user-friendly options. OpenAI has way more user-friendly options. Google still feels like a lot of their stuff is behind from a UX and usability perspective.
Yeah, and we won't even talk about Apple and Apple Intelligence.
Yeah.
And Genmojis.
Yeah. Oh, yeesh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be a little gruesome. All right. Well, speaking of usability, so big news for this week from Figma. They had their Config 2025. Why do they call it Config? Like, what does config have to do with
Figma.
the price of peanuts when it comes to Figma? Like,
Well, and config is not the sexiest part of, well, like anything. Like no
No.
one's like, let's
right?
go config.
Oh yeah, let's go
Developers
config. You know, like, I don't even think you have to config Figma. Like, what do they? Anyway, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
But Config 2025 was very, very big. They had a bunch of different stuff they put out. They put out Figma Buzz, which is this ability to like create, marketing stuff. Figma Draw. So apparently they've now decided that the drawing stuff that they had built in, they're going to make that its own kind of thing, so you can have it more like a Photoshoppy kind of deal. On the actual like really practical side of the house, they did release support for CSS grids effectively in Figma, which is very nice, much appreciated. So now there's another layout option that works with Figma, the dev mode and all that. So that's great. And then the two that I think that are the biggest ones that kind of big headlines. So Figma Sites is you can actually like take your Figma designs and actually just make them into a usable site that people can interact with. Apparently they're actually going to add some CMS support in there. Maybe they're going to kind of go for like the whole like static content setup. But that one actually got a bunch of folks from the accessibility side saying, whoa, buddy, because looking at the output of Figma sites, it's basically the usual div soup that you would normally get from Figma, and people were saying, well, hey, that's not a usable site, actually. You should be using like semantic HTML, as you really should, like headings and all that. And the response wasn't too great to that. It was essentially just like, well, you can do that if you go like tag by tag and literally select out that, which is not exactly a fun experience for anybody. So yeah, I'm happy that was brought up by accessibility folks, but that has been the case with Figma since the dawn of time. We've had to deal with the div soup that is in the output of Figma. And then Figma Make, which is their answer to, I guess, what we're calling now prompt to code sites. And apparently everybody needs to have one of these. So this is one where you get the big text box and you give it your thing, like, hey, go make me a marketing site for, my product, and, it comes out. The unique twists here are that you can actually kind of start with a Figma mock and say, I want to go and actually bring this to life kind of thing. And that you can also like zoom in on parts of it and then prompt your way to actually fixing particular parts of it. Like you can like click on a piece of text and say, hey, make this bigger. Or I suppose you could actually say, hey, make it an H3, wouldn't that be nice?
Make it accessible.
By prompt, make this accessible. I guess nobody does that. But yeah, no, so lots of very interesting stuff coming out of that. I still don't really understand the full flow that Figma intends for developers. I think this is just kind of more, fog and mist. Like, how do you, if you want to, actually take a product from, designs all the way through to production, like where do these parts and pieces fit in? I don't know. I don't think there's a coherent story there.
Well, the impression that I got, and we'll link to this in the show notes is the conference video where they kind of demoed how Figma Make works, and the way that I kind of see it fitting into a workflow is when you have a UX designer or somebody who needs to validate a prototype before they actually give it to the dev team and say, make this a real living, breathing thing, because it can do simple interactions like that. They showed it taking a Figma design and adding interactive buttons that actually made songs play, or animating a little piece of it so that this record that they were showing spun.
Yeah, which didn't work, which is hilarious.
It did not work. She
great.
had a second tab, and she's like, I also did this. Yeah. So, live coding never works the way you intend, so you have the backup. But seeing some of the stuff that they had made that you could actually interact with, I can see a lot of value in that, because users, even though you tell them this is how the interaction will work, being able to actually experience it, or, go from one screen to another and see kind of how that would actually play out in a real website is hard for a lot of people to grasp if they can't see it. Web designers, sure, we get it because we do it all day. We understand the mechanics of it, I think, a lot better. But if you're just a regular user and you want to put it in front of somebody and kind of get their initial thoughts without having to take the hours that it would take even to build a really simple prototype, I can see there being quite a bit of value in that. And I speak from going through a design sprint at our company just 2 or 3 weeks ago where, we had screens, we had mock-ups, we had some of our internal folks being our users, quote unquote, and even just trying to kind of explain how the workflow would work and, they had to use their imagination. It was harder than if there had been some really simple way to just kind of string things together and mock up some buttons that would open a modal or do an interaction. And yeah, it's smoke and mirrors also. Figma needs to have their AI story. They have their AI story now.
Really everybody has to have one of these.
But it's also, I think, really cool that they're like, okay, now we have our basic design, and now you can zoom in on a particular thing that you want to change instead of just having to restart the whole thing from scratch, which is what most of the other AI design or image-based solutions require or will do. So that's kind of neat, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the one reason to be, I guess, there's something a little bit more to this than your average. Let's just throw some prompt generation at something, because Figma has a bunch of metadata about the designs themselves. So compare it to Bolt or V0, and you say, I want a card that shows my products or something like that. Well, it's got to reach into it's got to kind of make something up and make some assumptions, and maybe it gets it right, maybe it doesn't. But in Figma, it's got all sorts of metadata. It knows about your theme. It knows about, it probably has a functional design in there. So the odds of it spitting out something that it works exactly how you want it to is much higher than if you just throw it into some average vibe coding platform. So I think I'm optimistic about it from that perspective. The part that I still don't understand, and this is what you're both getting at, is the workflow part of this, because I think this is cool. And for some designers, it's to let them build something and make it real that wasn't possible before. But so you generate, you have your cards, your layout of products and cards, you generate it and you say, oh yeah, that looks really good. Well, then what? Because do you hand that off to a developer who's probably not going to take that code, because they're probably going to need to build it in a different way to fit into the production system and to use the right components and to build it into the testing infrastructure and whatnot. And Figma's not really answering that. It's more like they just thought this was cool to build, which, I mean, it is. So I get it, but I don't know exactly how this is going to change how we approach day-to-day interactions with designers at all.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. Boy, unfortunately I can look at the negative side of this, which is it's essentially going to put more pressure on developers from project/management, where it's like, hey, this thing could go and make this thing work in 20 seconds. And then now you're telling me it's going to be 3 weeks to go and make this thing work. What's the deal here?
Right.
And, because it's brutal. You got to we got to instrument it. We've got to unit test. It's got to use our standard components, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, Julian Design had it running. We just opened it up on the iPad. It was
spinning.
Let's push it to production.
Right. Exactly. Right. So, I can see a lot of that. I do see the upside. Obviously always want to work with an informed team that understands the difference between a POC and prod production.
Because I was on a team for several months that one thing we were trying to do is make a tool that would allow us to take designs from Figma and turn them into React components. And we weren't unique in this space. A lot of people have been trying to do that. And that ended up failing for many different reasons, because there's some complexity and it's kind of a mess. But I at least thought the workflow made sense. Your designer creates this design in Figma, and then they, instead of handing off just here's the Figma site and go from there, you had this starting React component that is at least more functional, and then the developer still has to maybe tweak or whatever, but it's a more reasonable starting point and it speeds things up. And I still just don't. I haven't seen through exactly what the vision is of like how this is going to work for real teams working on real projects. But I don't know. I think at this point though, it's more just like we have to have an AI thing. Here's the AI thing.
Totally.
I think that's
Yeah. I think a lot of this is still just coming off the failed Adobe acquisition, and one can say, "Well, okay, that was the past, and now we've, this is the new future."
I was thinking about that. Adobe must be just biting their nails watching the stuff that Figma is releasing and the press that it's getting and the fact that they couldn't buy it and just roll it into everything that they already have. They probably hate it so much.
Yeah, I think they're going to come out with some probably pretty cool stuff. That's my guess. And we'll see if it's more baked or whatever. Who knows?
I'm not shedding any tears for Adobe. So.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think there's a little bit more AI news, right?
There is. And actually, the failed acquisition for Adobe and Figma is a perfect segue into what looks like it's going to be an actual acquisition of OpenAI buying coding IDE Windsurf.
What?
Yeah.
How much?
$3 billion.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So we talked about this 3 weeks ago in episode 91. There were rumors swirling that OpenAI was talking to Windsurf, also formerly known as Codium. And now it sounds like it is pretty much a done deal. So OpenAI is obviously buying Windsurf to complement ChatGPT and its coding abilities. So I'm sure they will bake that in really hard with all of ChatGPT. And this kind of is a trend that we've started to see from OpenAI because last year they bought a search and database analytics startup called Rocketset, which I'd never heard of, did not see this acquisition at all. But apparently Rocketset was acquired for a 9-figure deal, that was how it was described, to provide better infrastructure for the enterprise products that ChatGPT is offering. Again, never heard of it, don't know who they are.
Yeah.
I
guess it just slipped under the radar somehow.
It looks like it's Rockset because I googled Rocket Set and I got toy rocket sets. So it looks like it's Rockset, which does not help. I haven't heard of it either, but
yeah.
All right, yeah, but they, it's just OpenAI growing their ecosystem. There were some numbers that their weekly active users in February of this year were 400 million users, which is up from 300 million users in December. So in 2 months, they acquired 100 million more weekly active users. And they are also apparently planning to do another funding round where they are looking to raise $40 billion with a $300 billion valuation this year.
So it's money. It's
yes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I did find it interesting from this that there's no the only press releases I've seen are just from third parties. There's no OpenAI making a big deal about this and why they're excited about it and what they're going to do with it. It's just kind of this sort of like secret reports that feel like leaks that this is happening.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see when they do start publicly talking about this, we can kind of guess, like you said, it's probably just OpenAI-ify Windsurf, but there's no official talks from either company at least that I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Not yet, anyway. But man, those numbers are just crazy.
It does kind of reinforce that the developer market is just huge for these folks.
Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting, I guess. But I do wonder, what are you buying, right? At the end of the day, Windsurf is really just VS Code with a Codium plugin, essentially just kind of hardwired into it. Mm-hmm. And it's the integration isn't even all that good, to be honest. Like there's like a whole like its own. It's got its own settings stuff, and it feels very just kind of like bolted on. I mean, no offense to the windsurf folks, but it just it just doesn't feel super heavily integrated. So I just like it's just weird to me that like that the 95% of the code going on here is VS Code, right? It's not even you don't even own that. That's Microsoft, but I guess Microsoft is opening AI as well, or a big investor.
Microsoft invested a ton in OpenAI, so I'm kind of
God.
interested that they're doing this and almost, giving a middle finger to Microsoft and VS Code and everything that Windsurf is built on.
Right? Oh
It's-
my God.
I'm kind of with you, Jack. I used Windsurf for about a month, and it was fine. Like I mean, it was a fine enough editor. The AI stuff worked pretty decently, but never in that experience did I think, oh, this is $3 billion in of value that is on top of what VS Code is providing.
Right? No.
And I can't I don't see there's numbers in these press releases about OpenAI's numbers. I've not seen numbers on Windsurf's numbers in terms of their number of users.
It's not good. Like
I can't imagine it's great. Like
there was this, like we did the state of web dev for AI a couple episodes back, and Cursor was the clear winner if you discount Copilot. If you and which weirdly the survey didn't mention Copilot as one of these. So when you took into account Copilot was way up at the top. Cursor was a strong second, and then Windsurf was like maybe I want to say less than 20% of the developer base that was using AI tools at all was using Windsurf. Yeah. So you're kind of I don't know. I don't know what you're buying. What $3 billion is getting you. I really don't.
Well, I'm kind of curious how OpenAI thinks it's valued at $300 billion, to be honest. Like, what are you buying for that? You can do memes of your pictures. You can write some code that other people have written before, so they're doing it for you. Like, how do you justify that valuation either?
Oh, the OpenAI one, I'm not saying it's logical, but it makes way more sense than the Windsurf one to me, because at least they have huge new usage numbers. They've got huge brand recognition. Everybody knows what ChatGPT is, and the value of that is enormous. So do I think 300 billion is a way too large number? Yes, but at least it makes some sense, whereas Windsurf for 3 billion makes a lot less sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give
Apparently,
you that.
NVIDIA is $2.85 trillion worth of value, so I guess there's that. I'm just thinking, like, most of OpenAI is built on top of NVIDIA hardware, so it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
I can't even imagine, like, when you say numbers like that, my brain just does not compute how many zeros that must encompass.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I used to remember when billion was so weird to see that they would put like a little N after the B, because they're like, oh, no, hold on. You might think that's million, and we just messed it up, because it's B. But no, it's billion. And now it's like just B. It's like, whatever. Millions? Nobody does millions. That's pocket change. Billions is where it's at.
I remember when Facebook acquired Instagram, and that was like, you heard $1 billion and go, whoa.
What?
Yeah, that can't be real.
All right. Well, do we have any more news for this week?
One more thing,
Okay.
because we all love surveys and taking developer-focused surveys, there is another survey out. It is called the First Annual State of Dev Survey. I took it last week, and it doesn't ask you about, like, what's your favorite JavaScript framework or what tooling do you like. It's more like, what do you like doing outside of coding? Do you like to take hikes? Do you like to watercolor paint? Do you like to play music? So if you want to if you want to talk about your hobbies and what you do besides coding, there's now a survey for that. And I'd be really interested to see some of the things, like, what movies are you watching? What shows do you like? What music are you listening to? It's kind of fun. It's short. It's 15 minutes tops. Yeah. it should be another fun one to look at the results of when they're out.
Yeah. There's life outside of coding? What?
There is. Away from
Crazy.
screens or computers. Yep.
All right, well, that would be a fantastic segue into what's making us happy this week, but we've got a fire starter this week, so let's do that, and then we'll talk about what's making us happy.
Yes. All right. So there are 2 new properties, CSS properties, that are available in Chrome 137, which I think is probably the newest version of Chrome that is out. But they are called Reading Flow and Reading Order. So if you think about some of the new layouts that we've gotten in the last few years that have become really popular, we've got Flexbox, we've got Grid, and with those new layouts, there is the really much easier ability to switch DOM elements around to fit your design. So even though you might have, elements 1, 2, and 3, the order when you're looking at it on the screen might be 1, 3, and 2. And now Reading Flow and Reading Order have been introduced as properties, experimental still, so, they're not going to work everywhere yet, but they're properties to make accessibility and make tab navigation on keyboards easier, and so you're not just jumping around all over the DOM when you're using the tab key to kind of move across different elements. So Reading Flow is actually the property that controls the order of elements in Flex, Grid, or Box, and it lets you set different flow directions. So kind of like how you can have Flex directions or Grid directions, you can use this to specify, it should flow from right to left, it should flow from top to bottom, front to back, whatever. And then Reading Order lets you manually override certain elements within a reading flow container. So if there is one that's down towards the bottom, but it really should be one of the first things that a user can tab to, you can manually set that as, this is a much more important element in the flow, so jump down there first. It's great that people like Rachel Andrew and some of the other people in the CSS world are thinking about this, and Chrome is working to support it, because I can definitely imagine, as a user who doesn't tab a lot, that it could be very jarring or painful if that is a way that you navigate a lot around pages, when something like Grid or Flexbox just totally changes the layout on you.
Yeah, I fill out a lot of forms with a keyboard, and it's really annoying when something is out of sequence. It happens a lot when you'll get like there'll be like a help thing, like the classic help box that's like, here's where the CVV code is on your credit card, and like it'll get focus at some bizarre time, and it'll completely throw you off. And it sounds like this is, if you're using Flex to make things render backwards or whatever, that you need to match what the user's visually seeing with how the tab key should work. So I'm all here for it. I'm just worried that no one will actually use this, unfortunately.
Or that it gets out of sync, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
It's new. It's experimental. Hopefully it will take root, and the other browsers will start to support it, and it will become more of a normal thing for us.
Yep.
Yet another reason why the Ladybird browser probably won't be out in 2026. So many properties. All right. Well, let's talk about what's making us happy this week.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, TJ, what's making you happy this week?
All right, so I had some fun this week playing with my camera, and so if you're on YouTube, you can see, maybe you can compare my video this week to previous weeks, because I played with my settings a little bit, and I took kind of an interesting approach where I basically just let ChatGPT take total control. And so what I did is I had a full screen up of QuickTime just showing video feed from my camera, and I would take a screenshot of it, and then I would just send it into ChatGPT and say, like, I'm a professional YouTuber. Help me give me suggestions for how to improve I told it about what type of camera I used. I told it about my equipment, and it's like, help me optimize all of this stuff. And it was surprisingly helpful. I was actually, so it helped me with my camera settings. That bit makes a little more sense to me because I can see like, oh, well, it knows what type of camera I have. And so it's just going to pull from the internet, like recommended best settings, and it's going to help me parse the manual and figure out how to set them and that sort of stuff. The thing that kind of shocked me is that the things it was able to pull out of the image were things that I did not expect. Like it knew I have this light that is on the side to me that you might not be able to see. I don't know if it's off screen or not, but I have just a wire hanging down from it. And it's like, oh, that wire is kind of unprofessional. You should try to hide the wire. And then the biggest thing that it didn't like is that it doesn't like my door. And I kind of had to tell it like, look, the door's there. I can't I guess I could to completely move my desk, but there's some bit of reasonability I have to put into this. But it was kind of right. The door doesn't look great in my background, and it would be better if the door wasn't there. And I was impressed that it was able to pluck that out of the image and figure that out. So I'm just passing this along as a tip because I was happy with the results. I did not know what was going to happen, and I mean I've been doing video for quite a while, and I just reached one of those points where it's like I need to improve this, and just having something to talk to about this helped, I guess, push me forward. And yeah, but I was pretty happy with the results.
It's really hard to get that right, and because there's this exposure triangle, right? There is the aperture, there's the ISO, there's the shutter speed, and most people don't even have to think about that nowadays for anything. They don't like your iPhone camera just does it, right? And any camera in auto mode is going to handle it. But like if you just do that on a regular camera without control, you're going to get weird things where it's going to like the lighting is going to change over time. Is trying to compensate for things, and yeah, so you kind of want to lock it down. But like how to actually like work all those three things, if you're not a professional, like you don't know, like that's crazy. So it's really nice that like ChatGPT can actually come in and help you with that.
Yeah.
It was able to pluck in because it was telling me my skin temperature looked off, and to go into to change the color temperature on my lights. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even like tell you about that. And you know what? It was right. I changed the color temperature on my lights, and I thought it looked better. So it's kind of crazy, but yeah, I was able to pull in light levels. So when I was changing my aperture, it could tell how much my background was blurring, and it was suggesting, it was like, well, you could, if you want a little more blurring, you could change your aperture, and then you're gonna have to compensate with your ISO, and it would lay it out my options, and I don't know, it was I was impressed.
Yeah,
that is pretty cool. That bokeh effect is highly sought after too. So the blurred background.
100%. Paige, what's making you happy this week?
I am going to pick the Old Town trolley tours this week. Have either of you heard of them, taken them, anything?
No, I don't.
I'm assuming this is for like a specific city, or
It's not actually. It's for many cities because I've done trolley tours I've done them in Boston, and I think I've done it in Austin, Texas, and then this past week I did it in Key West. So my husband and I were down in Key Largo doing some scuba diving this past week, and one day we took a day trip down to Key West because it's about a 2-hour drive from Key Largo, which is the northern part of the Keys, all the way down through all the other Keys to Key West, which is the very bottom of the chain. But Key West is super cool. It's the second oldest town in the state of Florida, which we learned as we were doing the trolley tour. And the cool thing is that with these trolley tours, you can hop on and hop off. So you just hop on one, and it does a whole loop around whatever historical city it's in. And you can then, at every stop, you could get off. You can go explore more about that stop around there. And then 15 minutes later, another trolley will be along, and you can just hop back on because you have a little sticker on that says you're part of this tour group. And it's really cool because the drivers are very knowledgeable. They'll tell you all sorts of things as you're driving along, what you're looking at, the history of things. I've actually also done one in San Diego, I just remembered now. But Yeah, it was really fun, and we learned a lot more about Key West than either one of us knew before that. We learned a lot about its pirating history and a little bit about, we went past, the original Jimmy Buffett bar.
Oh
We
yeah.
saw Ernest Hemingway's house and the buoy that's the southernmost point of the United States. So it's really fun, and you can get them for multiple days if you're visiting somewhere for a few days. So you can get on one day, go see some sights, get off, come back and do it later. But it's a really neat little way to kind of get a quick overview of like what's around and the history of a place, and maybe places that you want to go back and see and explore more later. So I would highly recommend those. If you are in one of these towns, you'll probably see them just like cruising around because they're very, very noticeable. They're bright. They are trolleys. They're usually open. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Did you get to see the six-toed cats?
I did not see any six-toed cats, but I saw a lot of iguanas and a lot of just
Oh, yeah.
feral chickens that apparently run
Oh.
around Key West and are protected. They used to have cockfighting there. Then they outlawed that and just let the chickens go. So there's federally protected chickens just wandering around making a living in Key West.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, explain the six-toed. What was that? Because that went way over my head.
Yeah, so there's at the Ernest Hemingway house. He kept cats, and apparently some of them were six-toed, and so now there's a pod of six-toed cats that are at and around this Hemingway house.
Yeah, it's just a
Okay.
weird genetic mutation that these cats have, and because I guess Key West is kind of far away from most everything else, the cat population has a lot of that in its genetics.
Yes, weird and far away from everything else is pretty much the slogan of Key West.
Key West. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that place though; it's fantastic.
very fun.
All right. Well, what's making me happy this week is The Residents. It's a show, I think it was on Netflix, and it's a Shondaland show. It's basically it's a murder mystery in the White House, and it's a classic kind of like a Sherlock Holmes sort of whodunit type thing. But it is, I think, 8 episodes, and it was incredibly well done. The acting was absolutely fantastic. The plot and the writing was great. Like every episode, you think you know who's doing it, but nope, turns out to be somebody else. You don't find out until the very end the way that they did it, because it's in the White House. There's a whole political angle, and Al Franken is in there as like a senator, and it's great. And the cinematography was absolutely astounding. Like the way that they would kind of give you a sense of location in this building by just kind of moving from floor to floor and around, and it was just absolutely amazing, well done. I don't know how it's not getting more interest out there, but it's like just an awesome show that we really enjoyed. And I think I was gonna say that pottery was the thing that we did this week, because we actually went off and did like a thrown pottery thing between the two of us, but we were so like that was great, but we were so entranced by the show that we were like, when we get back from pottery, we have to watch the final episode because we need to know who done it. So that was what wins out this week for what's making us happy. But really, really good show.
I might have to check this out. I've read a few murder mystery books recently, and I haven't talked about any on the show because they've just been kind of okay, not bad, but not anything amazing. So I've been jonesing for something.
It's super clever.
Show,
the writing is just really clever, and they acknowledge the murder mystery tropes, and then they work around the murder mystery tropes, which is just great.
Cool.
All right. Well, that does it for another episode of Front End Fire, brought to you by the Blue Collar Coder. Check us out on our website as well as our Discord server. You can jump on there and talk to us live. Of course, we're also on all of the socials. So, yeah, let us know what you want to hear about next, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
See you then.